Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm Tucker, and that is my classic cohort, Abram Buhner, the arbiter of taste, as we like to call him around these parts. And today, we're going to be talking about something pretty interesting. Nintendo just dropped easily the most substantial firmware update for the Nintendo Switch almost 4 years into the system's life. And it's fucking cool, to be honest. We've been digging through it the last 20 minutes or something like that. And there's a lot to look at here. And I think it's a good sign, in my opinion. How are you feeling, Abram?
I'm feeling a little bit aroused,
Mm-hmm.
but more importantly, I'm feeling excited by the update. However, I'm more excited by the prospect of this meaning that the groundwork is being set for Game Boy or Game Boy Advance or some kind of new iteration to, NSO being added imminently. Because why, Tucker,
Yes.
would you update the infrastructure for Nintendo Switch Online,
Mm-hmm. If you weren't
but not
expanding it.
if you weren't doing it to add new content imminently, why do it right now?
Yeah.
I think
Card in the corner to our video that was just uploaded a few hours ago. Uh, the possibility of Game Boy / Game Boy Advance games coming to Nintendo Switch. I made a really slick thumbnail for that. I'm pretty proud of that thumbnail. But regardless, the Switch has been updated. There is now a new icon on the home menu on the bottom, which is a bright red, and it shows the Nintendo Switch Online logo. And if you click on it, it's got a very interestingly detailed set of pages for you to look at that includes all of the things that NSO covers. You've got a page for special offers, which is pretty barren and easily the most disappointing part of it. You've got a page that covers the NES and SNES online games, including them organized by date. So it essentially functions as an NES/NES history app, even going as far as showing or missing numbers for games that we don't know exactly when they came out on. Each game has their own trailer, their own blurb. Some of them have a little bit of secrets on it showing it's in relation to your age, which is interesting. And it's not on all of them. That's a strange feature. But this is a very rich update. I'm very pleased with this. This pleases me greatly.
I don't. We know when Super Punch Out came out, though. That's what's confusing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like the people. It's not like over at Nintendo HQ they're scratching their head like we have no fucking idea when we released Super Punch Out. So we're just gonna say it came out at some month. So it's a little bit strange in that respect. But I think this is both a great update and an excellent example of why Nintendo Switch Online needs more content added to it.
Yeah.
Because when you aggregate what Nintendo Switch Online has to offer, it doesn't look that impressive.
Yeah.
When it's kind of separated out and you got a couple different apps you have to come through, it's in your mind you have to do a little bit more digging and piecing together to recognize the fact that you're kind of not paying for a whole ton. I
Mm-hmm.
think easily the most engaging parts are the historical stuff, how you've got these new blurbs about the games and they're organized by release date. I think that's cool. um, I think the idea of having this one central hub for Nintendo Switch Online is really great. I
Yeah.
think that's what we'll talk about the most about, but there's also just great quality of life features other places. The trending tab for what your friends are playing,
Mm-hmm.
the new ways to move save data around and move images, screenshots, and videos around.
Yep.
The ability to prioritize downloads, which on a device in the year 2020 should have been there already. It feels like Nintendo is adding a lot of great features here, but of course the highlight is this new Switch Online section.
Yeah. I'm interested in this mostly because I mean it's a great way to access all of this, but hopefully it means Nintendo pays a little more attention to Nintendo Switch Online. I hope that the fact that the special offers for Nintendo Switch Online members is let me crack my knuckles, fucking tighten my glasses, and peer deeply into this page, in which is gold and tickets for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is purely digital content that you can get from playing the fucking game. And I've never had a shortage of gold coins or tickets in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. 100 gold
Gem apples.
gem apples, and Kirby Fighters 2. A really bland Splatoon Inkling clothing set and a recolor of a Tom Nook rug for Animal Crossing New Horizons. That consists of the features, the special offers that are offered to Nintendo Switch Online members, which is fucking lame. Those are terrible offers. It is an easy way for them to put extra demos for things, cool physical rewards, all sorts of stuff. If they really put effort into that, I feel like it would be cool. And now that they have a place where they can look at that and be like, oh, it's not great. Hopefully this pushes them to expand it. And on top of that, the fact that they're focusing on NSO in this regard as a whole service, hopefully means more expansion. Hopefully means more effort put into these things.
Tucker,
April.
I'm hopeful. I don't like to be hopeful. I don't like to be optimistic.
Yeah, of course.
But I think what you're saying speaks to the fact that Nintendo is cognizant that Nintendo Switch Online is important, because I think there's a great feeling in the community that Nintendo was kind of complacent with what NSO is, and that it was just the way things are going to be. And I had really come to accept that. I figured, fuck it, Nintendo doesn't really care. We're gonna get these selections of games, and then we've got no choice but to pay for online and pay for our save data backup and things like that. But this seems like a step in the right direction. Now, if I was in charge of NSO, things would be different.
Yeah.
But Tucker,
yes,
as I pointed out, and I made a humorous comment, as I like to do. If you remember back to Super Mario Maker 2, there was the extra modes little thing, and they're like, hey, here are where the extra modes are gonna go. And here's a bunch of space for extra modes, and we got one in a post-launch update, which is the Mario Maker 2 mushroom, Mario Bros 2 mushroom. But then they're like, hey, you know what? We just wanted extra space there just to have it. On the left-hand column of this section, there is space for something.
Yeah.
Is it space?
It can be a scrolling bar as well, so even more things can come. But
right, but deliberately right now, there's blank space. Could that be a Game Boy Advance, selector there for some new retro games? I don't know.
Yeah.
I certainly hope so.
Oh, that would be fucking fantastic, let me tell you.
I certainly hope so. But Nintendo Switch Online has just always been a missed opportunity. And we have both, if you listen to Backlog Banter, our weekly show about the games we're playing, we're always talking about NES Online, SNES Online, because they are great services.
Yeah.
We've both talked about the fact that if they were expanded, that they could be an excellent replacement for Virtual Console.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the right move on Nintendo's behalf now is to pivot Nintendo Switch Online to basically being a Virtual Console replacement instead of being an overarching membership for Switch.
Yeah.
Yes, you get your online, you get your cloud saves, but let's make it about that retro content, because I think that this app clearly shows that is the focus with the way that everything's laid out, where you got all the games, you got the blurbs, you got everything. This is clearly Nintendo's focus.
Yeah.
But it's just time for that to be expanded.
Yeah. I have always been on the NSO is worth the price team. Even when I didn't use NES or NSNS Online, I've now gotten into that and gotten my money's worth with that. But I've always been of the mindset that looking at what the games that this offers and the fact that, while it's not great online, it gives you online, and there are some extra things that it's worth the price. But this, if they expand it and put more focus and detail into it, really could prove my point. I think that it's good for them to put the focus on the games, because on the retro content and legacy and history, and consolidating that all into, hey, this is the Nintendo Switch experience. So it's our whole legacy, because their online is not fantastic. It's good in some things. It's bad in other ones. It's mediocre in those other few. But at the moment, people are getting this for the games. I think people who pay for the online are usually pretty disappointed by it. And they might end up putting more effort into focusing on the games, or the people who are buying it for online might end up paying more attention to the games now that they are being put to the forefront.
I think that holy Christ, I think my house is going to blow over. We're in the midst of a storm up here in Maine, and it's fucking something else. But Nintendo is never going to be at the forefront of online gaming. They're just never going to do it. And what's here is mediocre, bordering on bad, and bordering on unplayable, depending on the game and the netcode you're talking about in the first party. But what Nintendo has and what their service can do, that Xbox Live or PlayStation Plus can't really do is double down on history.
Mhm.
And I think this is a step in the right direction because Nintendo's history is so rich, and having trailers and blurbs is neat, but I want to see even more than that. If I was basically paying a subscription service to have the Criterion channel or the DC universe of
Mhm.
Nintendo history,
Mhm. Oh
God, I would
yeah.
be so happy. And more games is one thing, but dude, I'd be so happy if it was just we were talking about this, instead of just gameplay clips, they were the TV trailers for the prominent games, or even just more robust data, because I pulled out for Tucker, because he is an uneducated fool, as we've come to
Oh,
learn here
of
in Backlog
course.
Banter, who didn't have a Nintendo Power subscription. Leafing through something like this and getting to read, this article right here from the God King himself, Hideo Kojima, talking about Super Mario Brothers as I try to flip to the fucking page. Stuff like this was possible because Nintendo Power was a Nintendo affiliated product.
Yeah.
Let's get that sort of energy back in Nintendo Switch Online, and I see the foundation of that here, because I would love to see deeper discounts for members. I would love to see special offers that are actually substantive. I'd like the cloud saves to
Yes.
get better. But at the end of the day, I would pay happily for the sort of legacy content and celebration that I think we've been missing, because it doesn't necessarily make sense to have that be inside of a game. I want the Super Smash Brothers Brawl Vault to
Yeah.
be Nintendo Switch Online is what I want.
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm thinking of a few interesting things here. Now, when they added SNES Online, they made a pretty big deal of, hey, this is not adding anything to your price, to your subscription, current subscription.
Mhm.
Which, by the way, I think it's totally fairly priced, especially if you do it the way that we do it with the family membership, dividing it 8 ways. It's nothing. It's like 40 cents a month. It's absolutely fucking nothing. But I do think that they would need to start charging more at some point, the more content that they add, if they hopefully eventually reach something like access to N64 games, or God forbid GameCube games. But it wouldn't make much sense for this to just be a stock price where they kept adding more and more value. Of course, that'd be fantastic, but it doesn't make much sense from a business perspective. And what I think could be cool for us and keep those original members is adding expansions. If you want Game Boy, if you want
Mhm.
N64, add $5 to your yearly subscription or something like that, and you get access to those. But for those who don't want that they have the option to pay the base price and just have NES and SNES Online. And I think that would work really well for them.
I think that's a smart move. I think the other thing to contextualize and consider is the streaming services, the subscription services that other companies have. And there's something to be said for the relatively small number of NSO members as it is, and the
Sure.
fact that Nintendo could add value and thus generate new customers by putting out legacy content that they're just sitting on. You know, let's say Super Mario Land 2 Six Golden Coins makes Nintendo zero revenue sitting in their vault.
Mhm.
You put Game Boy out for as another paid tier, you're going to get some new members, but you're probably going to be looking at a subset of, I think, I could be wrong with this figure, like the 2 million Nintendo Switch online owners. You're probably
Mhm.
going to look at a subsect of that's going to then upgrade. I don't think you're going to pull in more people who will then buy the
Yeah, of
base
course.
and then upgrade. I think that actually the best move for Nintendo might be to bite the bullet a little bit, put out more content and inject more value, and get this figure up to the point where they're like PlayStation, where half of PS4 owners had PS Plus essentially.
Mhm. Yeah.
If Nintendo could get there, if they're making passive revenue off of 30 million people buying into this service for retro games, there's a chance that might generate a significant portion of money that earns them goodwill after the service has been what it has been for 2 years, and earns them new fans and new dollars. So I'm not necessarily sure, the more I think about it, if more tiers make the most sense. Of course, I
Sure.
would I would pay out the nose for a comprehensive Nintendo streaming service.
No, yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Of course.
I mean, I look at Xbox Game Pass, and I sit there and I'm like, this is great value. There are games here that I want to play, but the vast fucking majority of them are A, games I already played. And the ones that I'm interested in are usually ones I already played because I had access to them otherwhere. That's not a word, but whatever, fuck. But the ones I don't are ones that I'm not personally interested in because I haven't been ingrained in Xbox history. And a lot of these big third-party franchises don't interest me. But I look at something like the PS Plus collection. I look at something like NES and SNES Online. I'm like, holy shit. Most of these are games that I want to play because I'm someone who is personally invested in Sony and Nintendo. And I think Nintendo knows that they have the fans that play Nintendo games. That was a stupid fucking statement. But for people like me looking at Nintendo history and saying, gee, I really do want to try these random Game Boy Mario games. I really want to try weird spin-offs. I now have access to some of them through NES and SNES line, but there are more, obviously. And I think what could be really cool is if they turn this Nintendo Switch Online thing into an expanded deal. Yes, add subscription service, maybe a tier, maybe not for Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, but I think they could also work in a way to sort of incorporate Virtual Console. If this becomes the essentially virtual console shop, you need to have NSO to access it, but you can piecemeal buy N64 GameCube games and access them through this. I think that could be pretty cool. It'll expand the access to the content. It'll give them the ability to sell them piecemeal, but it won't be clogging the actual eShop. I think that could be a pretty cool balance and solution.
Yeah,
This is all fucking spitballing and shooting lasers out of my eyes, but I think that would make a lot of sense.
I like when you shoot lasers out of your eyes. I've also been thinking, you made a very salient point, but at the same time, I've been looking at you, and I've been thinking that the word I associate with you right now is persnickety. I don't know what persnickety means, so it might not be applicable at all, but I was just, as you're making your point, I was thinking Tucker Hazel persnickety. There's a connection there to be made. Is it accurate?
Google is loading. Continue to talk as it does so. Oh, persnickety. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Placing too much emphasis on trivial or minor details. Kind of, considering I'm extrapolating this update to mean that GameCube games are coming and the return of Virtual Console.
What you're saying is an interesting point. I think the problem with that is that Nintendo's going to want as many people to buy Virtual Console games as possible.
True. Yeah.
And at a certain point, for the less scrupulous among us, not that anyone in this call lacks moral scruples, but why not just emulate them if you're going to be asked to charge an entry fee and then a base a la carte price? I mean, we saw the Disney Plus Premier Access Mulan thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible that double blind of purchasing is not really what companies are going to want to do. But I think the general sentiment of making this a hub for Nintendo's history and for their games is great. And how you monetize that is frankly for Nintendo to decide, because whatever the monetization scheme is, I'll be there for it. But I think there's also other ways to expand Nintendo Switch Online. One of my brilliant ideas has not come to fruition yet. It has in some respects with smaller publishers. But the year is 2021. Fee Fi Fo Feltzer has released their coronavirus vaccine, whatever that dumb fucking company's name is. We're all healthy. We're in the Los Angeles Convention Center, except we're not. We're at home because we can't get to E3. But through the power of Nintendo Switch Online, we can download an app with limited time demos for the games being shown off at E3, and we can play them for the duration of the weekend. I think that there are really interesting ways to engage your community through a membership app that offer genuinely exciting and important opportunities.
Yeah.
Almost an extension to the Smash 3DS demo given out to Platinum Club Nintendo members. I think there's a lot of ways to take cues from things they've done in the past and be forward thinking, even in the context of bumbling Nintendo with their online footprint. There are ways that this service, I think, could be much stronger than it is now, even removed from legacy content.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. I was never part of my Nintendo. I never have cared for online memberships. I have only just recently gotten PS Plus. I got it for Fall Guys, and I honestly think I paid for a year at that point. But I just don't care too much about that online stuff. But now that I'm getting more into paying attention to video games, to caring about how these online things develop and how the companies make their decisions, I think something like that would be fascinating for me. I would get that opportunity to essentially relive what people experienced with My Nintendo, with Nintendo Power, with these things that companies did to incentivize their player base to be more ingrained in their communities. And I think it'd be really cool. I just hope that that's what happens. But I don't have a lot of hope that they take that route.
Yeah, I think we're really we're hopefully on the ground floor, but we're unfortunately perhaps instead close to the ceiling of what Nintendo wants to do with Nintendo Switch Online in the future.
Yeah.
It's very possible that we're getting really, excited and optimistic, and all they really wanted to do is aggregate this content in a different way, and they're kind of going to leave it alone.
Yeah.
It's possible, if not probable, that that's what they're going to do. But I do think that even outside of radical reinventions, outside of really innovative thinking on this front, I do think we'll get new games, and I hope that maybe we'll wake up to Game Boy Advance, and then well, you'll be up fucking far before it.
Oh yeah.
I'll be up post its announcement if it happens. But I don't know. This is a game of potential. When we were talking about From Here to Eternity, I made a reference to physics. I wasn't big on physics. Got a good grade in that class. My professor really liked the comic I wrote about physics and Calvin and Hobbes. However, the one thing I'll always remember, Tucker, close your eyes. Do you remember Bob on Battlefield?
Can hear the song in my head. I know the
Great
map.
song, great tune.
Yeah.
Now imagine at the top of the fucking hill is King Babam. Okay?
He usually is.
He's just sitting down there, he's asleep, right?
Yeah.
At that moment, he's got a lot of potential energy. Now imagine you were Mario and you came up
I am. Wahoo.
and you came behind him and you picked him up and threw him off of Bob-omb Mountain.
Mhm.
Okay? That potential energy is going to turn into kinetic energy.
This is a terrible metaphor.
We are at the top of the mountain staring at the sleeping King Babam, because there is so much potential energy in Nintendo Switch Online right now as it stands.
Uh-huh.
But the question is if Nintendo is going to convert that to kinetic energy and actually execute.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you had asked me, you can open your eyes now, by the way. But I know my bassy tones are great with the eyes closed and all that. The erotic element, we get it.
Yeah.
I try not to hammer my sex appeal home too hard. But if you asked me in September 2018 if any of this was possible, I'd say no, because there was no potential energy in Nintendo Switch Online then.
True, yeah.
But in firmware 11.0, Tucker Hazel reflected my Nintendo Switch. There is potential. Mm-hmm. Now let's execute.
And I think that's a really good note to end this on. We've spun our points. 11.0 is by far the most fantastic update the Nintendo Switch firmware has ever had. And all we can do is hope that this is a good sign for what's to come. But on that note, hopefully we'll see you guys tomorrow morning for reactions to Game Boy/Game Boy Advance games coming in Nintendo Switch Online. Maybe not, probably not, but it's certainly possible.
I just don't know why you would do this entire infrastructure update right now if it wasn't being accompanied by something.
Yeah. And we'll see. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, like, please. Seriously, we're almost at 160. That'll be fucking great if we hit 160 like tomorrow. Unlikely, but it's possible. And if you like this video, check out other stuff. We made a video almost directly related to this a couple hours ago. We do a lot of other content. Our content's going to be slowing down in the coming weeks, as unfortunately my dear boy Abram over there is traveling the world and not making BLB content, which is, to me, just seems like a worse way to spend your life. But yeah, I'll be here. I'll see what I can do on my own. But until then, thank you for watching.
You're welcome.
Yeah.